From the headquarters of Teleso English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South. I am Kijan Haynes. The Workers' Party, founded by former Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, has nominated him in his bid to return to power for a third term, even as he remains behind bars. Polls show him with near double support of all other major candidates. Lula is waiting for a final court judgment on whether or not he can run. The party is calling for a grand march on August 15th to register Lula in the Electoral Superior Court.
Today, in this historic date of the Workers' Party convention, we say to Brazil that Lula is our candidate, and the people will register him as a presidential candidate on August 15. This is the most confrontational act we will undertake against this rotten, putrid system, with a segment of the judicial system that does nothing except persecute Lula.
The state of emergency imprisoned Lula, an innocent man without a shred of evidence except for his popularity and the appreciation the Brazilian people demonstrate toward him for his social achievements, for everything we did for this country. But most importantly, their fear is also based on everything that we still are capable of doing. They know that we will never let the Brazilian people go back to begging at traffic lights of this country. We were responsible for taking the first steps towards a better world. And they aren't just afraid of these steps, of my house, my life, Bolsa and Bolsa Familia, but everything else that we are capable of doing for Brazil. And for us, Lula represents what is fundamental.
Our correspondent in Sao Paulo, Ignacio Limas, has more.
Saludos, llegó la fecha tan esperada para el Partido de los Trabajadores el 4
Thousands of supporters attended to Brazil's Workers' Party National Convention in the city of Sao Paulo. The PT formalized the presidential candidacy of former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, despite his imprisonment. Another important point of the convention was the return of Dilma Rousseff to the political landscape after being overthrown by a parliamentary coup in 2016. Now she will be running for the Senate representing the state of Minas Gerais. Dilma said that it is crucial to keep fighting inside the political sphere and supporting former President Lula da Silva, who stands against the neoliberal measures of Michel Temer and has most of the approval from the poorest sectors of the country. The PT party announced that more demonstrations will be taking place in the following days ahead of the presidential elections on October 15.
Ignacio Limas there from Brasilia. Social movements in Brazil have launched a wave of caravans headed for Brasilia.
Social movements, unions and diverse sectors of civil society have left for Brasilia. They will walk together for 100 kilometres ahead of August 15th, the day when the Workers' Party will officially register Lula da Silva as their candidate for the presidency, despite the fact Lula is currently imprisoned in the city of Curitiba.
The powers behind the cap don't want Lula to run for the presidency, so they illegally imprisoned him to prevent him from running.
At the same time, 6 activists started a hunger strike 5 days ago to demand that the Supreme Court free Lula.
This goes beyond Lula. This is in defense of the Brazilian people. The hunger strike, the caravans, these are our battles, and we will continue to fight.
On every poll carried out so far by different agencies, Lula remains the front-runner by a wide margin to win the presidency. In markets, shopping centres and plazas across the country, spontaneous demonstrations in support of Lula are a common sight and a symbol of the people's opposition to those currently in power.
We cannot stop denouncing injustice. We are seeing the onset of the right wing. These are the people who killed Marielle Franco. They are perverse, stupid, cruel and obstructionist.
On Saturday, the Workers' Party revealed who will run alongside Lula. Meanwhile, on the streets, social movements plan to hold various mobilisations until August 15th in defence of Lula's constitutional right to run for president.
The Venezuelan Constituent National Assembly held a special session on Saturday to celebrate 1 year of its founding. Assembly members recognized the efforts of President Nicolas Maduro in 2017 to re-establish peace in the country after 3 months of violent protests promoted by the opposition. The Constituent National Assembly was installed on July 30th, 2017, with the objective of writing a new constitution that would bring improvements and extend the changes made to the Constitution of 1999. During the ceremony, President of the Constituent National Assembly, Diosdado Cabello, said the peace was achieved thanks to the help of the Venezuelan people.
Desde hace muchos años contra nuestro pueblo y no han podido.
Peace was achieved in the country because peace is now our own independence, which we obtained after many years of struggle. In order to establish and keep our independence, we need peace, and we got it by the power of the Constituent National Assembly. The opposition can say whatever they want. Now they say they don't recognize this assembly. They say it was created to eliminate the National Assembly. But we haven't eliminated anything. The National Assembly still functions.
Veronica Insausti has more from Caracas.
1 year ago, right here where I'm standing, the Constituent National Assembly was established, and as such, peace was regained in the country. Diosdado Cabello, the president of the assembly, recalled the events of the past year during a small ceremony. From the onset of the riots and the creation of the assembly to all the advancements achieved in conjunction with other state institutions. Besides this, Cabello talked about the ongoing economic recovery plan and announced that the repeal of illicit currency exchanges has been officially published in the government's gazette. He also anticipated that more reforms are going to be announced in the coming weeks. Cabello also announced that any person who wants to invest in the country using foreign currencies can freely do so, and that the government will no longer subsidize companies using U.S. dollars, instead using that money for social labor. Finally, he said that any other reform needed to help the economic recovery plan will pass through the assembly. That is all we have for now.
Let's take a short break now. Join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. In Panama, the trial against former President Ricardo Martinelli remains stagnant. Social movements and civil society think that the process only shows the prevalence of impunity in Panama.
Social movements say the trial against Ricardo Martinelli has become nothing more than a media spectacle.
This process doesn't seem to be meant to bring someone, to justify, but to pretend something is happening. They pretend to look for culprits of corruption, but they don't in the end.
The trial has been delayed for several weeks. The defense has used delayed tactics, like visits to the doctor or asking to introduce new evidence.
Martinelli's defense stated that they will present new evidence, obviously to keep delaying the process, and the court is playing their game. They keep giving them time to do that. They are helping them to work on agreements. We have seen this before in trials against high officials, and we think this is just more of the same.
The court could also decide the charges which the former president will be tried. When he resigned from his position as a Central American Parliament member, his case could then be managed by the public ministry. This could delay the process and sentencing even further. People don't trust in this any longer.
No matter what, this will be a political trial, not totally legal or constitutional, as many other trials here in Panama. This is shameful because the common people keep being sentenced and condemned, sometimes without enough proof, and sometimes they even go to jail without even being tried. But people like Martinelli don't.
Martinelli is still in the Renacer prison, where he serves his preventive sentence. However, after all these delaying actions, the verdict to definitely condemn him seems to be far from happening.
Now, experts in Panama are concerned over the increasing use of contaminants in energy production. Activists say the policies which allow this to happen seek to satisfy private interests.
This hydroelectric plant is one of the main energy providers in Panama. Nonetheless, the government has increased its support for non-sustainable energy sources, like oil, in order to please private interests.
The government ignores things like solar and wind energy and instead favors policies that benefit only a handful of monopolies.
While 55% of the energy in Panama comes from hydroelectric plants, over 32% is still being produced by oil-based fuels, which are damaging to both people and the environment. This is allowed to go on while clean energy sources provide a mere 10% of the country's energy. Analysts say this is done to perpetuate the reliance on foreign fuel sources.
Their business model is to import oil and natural gas. This is a safe source of income for the elite and those in power. This makes Panama a country with no energy sovereignty.
Plants like Pan Am Generating, which has been the cause of health issues for those who live around it. Authorities point out that over the next few years, 60% of the country's energy will come from plants such as this.
These plants stand against worldwide policies that are meant to protect the environment and promote clean energy sources. The problem in Panama is that powerful players benefit too much from non-renewable energy sources, so our economic policies aim only to please them and their profits.
While the government talks about increasing clean energy production, the Public Services Authority announced additional taxes for solar panel users.
They want to impose taxes on solar energy because they are protecting big business and their investments while attacking the rights and interests of the Panamanian people.
This situation could worsen with Law 573, which is currently being discussed in the National Assembly. This law could give private interests all the power to decide which energy sources the country uses.
Thousands of women in Colombia gathered to breastfeed their babies in public spaces. The event is part of a campaign in support of breastfeeding and against chronic malnutrition that affects around 40,000 children in the country. The initiative also seeks to break off the taboo of breastfeeding in public.
We should not be ashamed about breastfeeding in public because we do it out of love.
I think that prohibiting breastfeeding in public goes against children's rights because they need to be properly fed.
Chile has become the first country in South America to ban the commercial use of plastic bags. Large businesses have 6 months to phase out the use of plastic bags, while smaller ones will be given 2 years to adopt to the new rules. It means that any form of plastic bag other than those constituting primary packaging necessary for hygiene or to prevent food wastage are prohibited.
I think that the human being is an animal of habits, and if you take something from him, he has to get used to it and use another thing.
Well, I am going to use my backpack. This backpack I have got here and textile bags. This is the option. Yes, to me it seems to be a good thing.
Here's something you don't see every day. Heavy snowfall has hit the Ecuadorian town of Papayata. Dozens of vehicles were trapped on the roadway after snow fell between Friday night and Saturday morning. According to information disseminated by the ECU 911, dozens of buses with passengers on board and around 35 private vehicles got stuck until emergency services had to come rescue them. Snow isn't uncommon, but it's been increasing in frequency over the past few years. The island of Grenada continues cleanup after heavy rains and floods came down on Wednesday. Grenada's carnival kicks off on the 13th and 14th of August, but many events are held in the National Cricket Stadium in the days leading up to it. The ground floor and basement were inundated with water. Fire officials, volunteers, and even prisoners have been recruited to aid in the cleanup efforts.
We should be able to get this place cleaned up by Monday, please God. Right? The prison services are helping us on the outside and also in the basement. Our main area of damage and dirt is in the basement, as we had a lot of the river coming in there. So that is being taken care of now with the help of the fire services.
The People's Republic of China is providing a $12 million grant to the government of Antigua and Barbuda to build 2 health centers and to upgrade their cricket stadium. The deal was signed on Friday at the office of the Prime Minister. $2 million will go to the repair of the stadium. Technicians will be in Antigua from September for 3 years to work on the upgrades and to train staff in its maintenance. The rest of the grant will go toward the construction of the health centers.
This particular grant of $10 million will help us to strengthen the delivery of health care at the community level as we seek to have a healthier population and certainly a wealthier population. And again, it is the People's Republic of China that is helping us to build capacity in this very critical area of our development.
And it is also a symbol of long-standing friendship between our 2 governments and our 2 peoples of China and Antigua and Barbuda.
Staying there, Prime Minister Gaston Brown is breaking his silence into the investigation into an Indian billionaire who gained citizenship through the Citizen by Investment program, who may have been running from the law in India. Mehul Choksky is wanted in connection with an alleged $2.1 billion fraud scandal known in his home country as the Punjab National Bank fraud case. Prime Minister Gaston Brown maintains he does not know Choksky, and by all investigations there was nothing untoward about his application. He says justice must now take its course.
It will turn out that the gentleman is innocent. We have to allow for due process. If he's guilty and there is a need to extradite him, certainly we'll cooperate fully. We have not been able to determine that any false statements were given in his application. Truth is, there are no convictions at the time of his application. There was not even any charges. In fact, there was not even anything in the public domain. So the fact that something happened subsequently doesn't mean that you just pick the man up and send him out of the country.
Let's take another short break now. Join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. Floods swept through a number of cities located along India's Ganges River, wreaking havoc for residents of the country's northern Uttar Pradesh state. Heavy rains over the past few weeks have caused flooding in hundreds of villages and displaced thousands of people in the country's most populous state. So far this year, more than 1,500 people have died across the country due to storms, floods, and landslides.
There is not a single house in the village where water has not entered. The water has damaged every item inside our homes.
18 people were killed and 33 injured in a crash between a passenger bus and a tanker in northwest Pakistan. The injured passengers were taken to the district hospital after rescue workers rushed to the crash site. According to official reports, over 9,000 road accidents are reported every year, killing around 5,000 people. In the United States, members of the right-wing group Patriot Prayer held a so-called Freedom March in Portland, Oregon. The group claims to advocate for freedom of speech and oppose the idea of big government. They also show support for U.S. President Donald Trump and the Second Amendment of the Constitution, which is the right to bear arms. The Rose City Antifa, or anti-fascist group, and their allies started a counter demonstration. The last Patriot Prayer rally in Portland on June 30th turned into a riot where at least 5 people were injured. Israel's most integrated minority, the Druze, have protested the country's new law, which takes away their rights. Tens of thousands of people gathered in Tel Aviv on Saturday to protest against the new law declaring it a nation-state of the Jewish people, which means only Jews have the right to self-determination in the country, and it downgrades Arabic from an official language. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has defended the law.
People ask us to consider ourselves. We consider ourselves as Israeli Druze. Today there is no the name Druze. It's a Jewish state, and we are not Jewish. We ask the government and all the members of the Knesset to delete this law, not to correct this law, to delete this law from the history. We are loyal, we are equal rights, and we are fighting in very strong struggle to be equal rights with the Jewish people here, because we paid the ultimate price, the blood of our children, to protect this border of this state.
In Zimbabwe, 27 members of the opposition Movement for Democratic Change appeared in court for facing charges of public violence. The MDC members were arrested on Thursday at the party's headquarters, but were not formally charged. They will be held in custody until they return to court on Monday. Prosecutors said the accused were positively identified by police and that witnesses would testify against them. Their lawyers said the MDC members were innocent and were delivering election results from provinces when they were arrested. And 3 of the victims from post-election clashes in Harare were buried on Saturday. The body of 53-year-old mother of 2, Sylvia Mafosa, was laid to rest with hundreds of friends and family gathered to pay respects. Mafosa had left her office on Wednesday and found herself in the middle of the post-election violence. Her husband said that she had fled the violence and was shot in the back. And finally, a rhinoceros charged a van with a Mexican family inside as they toured a safari park in Puebla last Monday. Video recently uploaded to social media, shot from the car behind, showed the moment the rhino attacks the van and the van starts driving away as zookeepers run behind the animal. Local media reported that no one was injured and that the rhino is now in a different section. And that story brings us to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for Telesur English. I am Kijan Haynes. Thank you for watching.